Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be recommending 5 grimdark fantasy book series that you should read if you enjoyed Joe Abercrombie's First Law trilogy. Some of these book series I have read all of the books, and some of them I've just read a couple. But before we go ahead and get on into the recommendations, I just want to review really quickly what exactly grimdark fantasy is and how it differs from your traditional fantasy. If you're interested in just skipping to the book recommendations, check the timestamps down below in the description box. Grimdark fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy. Its world is normally more dark, more gritty, and morally ambiguous. The characters can definitely be described as antiheroes, and all of them are morally gray. The worlds are often bleak and violent and destructive, and the heroes often have tragic endings. There's often graphic depictions of violence and suffering, and the authors do not shy away from these harsh realities. Grimdark fantasy often focus on corruption, especially in institutions of power such as government. This leads to a lot of the themes that we see in grimdark fantasy that have to do with greed and abuse of power. One of the main things that I take away from grimdark fantasy is that we have characters that are often selfish. They are not doing things from an altruistic perspective or motivation. Often these characters are self-serving, but at times do have redemptive qualities. A lot of these characters and a lot of these worlds are built upon the philosophy of nihilism, where we see that these characters are rejecting the idea of truth or morality as something that can be objective. Because of this, there is often a total rejection of established laws and institutions, which can often lead to complete anarchy. But before we go ahead and get on into the grimdark book recommendations, if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button and giving this video a like to throw my channel a little bit of support. The first book is Priest of Bones by Peter McClean. This is the first book in the War for the Rose Throne. Now, I have only read Priest of Bones. I have not read I think there's 2 other books in the series. But when I first read this book, my immediate thought was, if you are a fan of Joe Abercrombie, you would really like this book. Unfortunately, I did not love Priest of Bones enough to want to continue the series. But if you are someone that really likes the grimdark genre, I think this would work for you. In this book, we are following Thomas Piety, and he is a gangster, and he was running Ellenburg, this city, before he was called away to serve in a very traumatic war. So we are following him as he was returning from war to this city. Alongside him is his loyal right-hand man known as Bloody Ann, as well as a group of violent and hardened veterans. In his absence, Thomas finds out that his city has been taken over by rival gangs, and he has to do everything in his power to take back his city. So what makes Priest of Bones a grimdark book? Well, this book does have a lot of violence interwoven into its plot. Thomas's city, Ellenburg, is overrun by poverty, crime, and systematic corruption. Thomas is a deeply flawed, morally ambiguous antihero. He does good for those that he cares about and protects them, but he's also a very ruthless killer and gangster. Unlike traditional fantasy, this book does focus a lot on the machinations of the criminal underworld, of which Thomas is a huge part. We also see that Peter McClean tried to address the mental health implications from fighting in a war, because Thomas and a lot of his veterans are dealing with mental health issues after coming home from the war, specifically PTSD. So we have the psychological trauma and the psychological issues that these characters are dealing with, in addition to operating in such a bleak and violent world. Next, we have the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence. This story takes place in a post-apocalyptic world that resembles medieval Europe, where advanced technology and magic coexist. We are following the protagonist, Jorg Ancraft, and at only 14 years old, he is the violent leader of a band of criminal outlaws. At the start of the novel, Jorg is consumed by hate and vengeance after witnessing the murder of his mother and brother. He decides to leave his life of luxury and royalty to enter a life of chaos and become a leader of this band of outlaws. Jorg's ultimate goal is to reclaim his birthright, take his father's throne, because he views his father as complicit in his mother and brother's murder. But along his journey, Jorg faces pushback, political problems, supernatural interference, as well as the consequences of his own choices. So what makes the Broken Empire trilogy grimdark? Jorg is the epitome of an anti-hero. He is incredibly selfish, he is violent, and he commits horrific acts of brutality throughout this story. He also has a lot of psychological trauma that he revisits over and over in this book, having witnessed the murder of his family. This adds layers to his character because at times the reader can sympathize with him. Like I said, this world is a mix of post-apocalyptic slash technological advancement. It's a really, really odd world, but the post-apocalyptic elements give this setting a very bleak and hopeless tone. And basically, people are surviving, and whoever can survive will survive. So there is a survival of the fittest type element to this book, and there really are very little laws governing the framework for society. This book definitely doesn't shy away from graphic violence. We have scenes of brutal battles, murder, torture. There are references to sexual assault in this book, although from what I remember, it's not graphic. Once again, we have a lot of nihilistic undertones in this book, or as the series progresses, he is very self-reflective and wonders if his actions are even gonna fix anything. Next, we have the Ravensmark trilogy by Ed McDonald. In this book, we are following Rhyhalt Galhero. He is a Blackwing in the service of a Nameless. And Nameless are sorcerers that defeated these very powerful antagonistic beings known as the Deep Kings in this epic battle. The world in this book is dominated by the Misery. This is a vast wasteland that is a result of the battle between the Nameless and the Deep Kings. It's a concentrated area of magic, but it's also a wasteland. People get very sick if they enter into it, and anything inside of it is twisted and warped. Reality itself is twisted and warped. In book one, Rhyhalt is tasked with investigating the murder of this young woman, but this actually opens up the story as Rhyhalt starts to investigate the truth about this world, what happened in that battle between the Nameless and the Deep Kings. He has to question his servitude and loyalty to this Nameless, this sorcerer. He also uncovers a lot of conspiracies regarding the magic system in this world. In addition to what's going on the outside, Rhyhalt has to confront a lot of demons from his past and his loyalty to his country, his city, and Crowfoot the Nameless. So why is the Ravensmark trilogy considered grimdark? Well, the setting is a war-ravaged landscape, and then we have the chaotic, nightmarish misery, and the entire setting just sets the tone for a very bleak world. The world is ruled by these ancient sorcerers, beings known as the Nameless, like I said, and they use the people, they use humans as pawns in their cosmic machinations, which makes it seem like they have absolutely no value for human life. Rhyhalt is definitely a morally gray character. He is very hardened from his past, and he is willing to do things that are wrong in order to accomplish an assignment that was given him. While there are moments where he shows compassion and loyalty, his actions are more of a morally gray character than that of your traditional hero. The violence in this book can be quite gritty and graphic. I think book two, there were some elements of the magic and something that was going on with a sorcerer in that book that was just like, gave me the ick, and it definitely was more horror-like. And once again, we have that nihilistic undertone because the main conflict in this book is between the Nameless and the Deep Kings, which are beings that operate or transcend that of normal humans. So if humans have absolutely no control in the outcome of their world, what is the point of even fighting for it? Next, we have the Covenant of Steel series by Anthony Ryan. In this book, we are following a character named Alwyn Scribe, and he starts off as being a part of this outlaw band, and then he is conscripted, becomes a soldier, then a chronicler, and then a leader in this war. Alwyn is very resourceful, very intelligent, but he is driven by self-preservation and personal ambition, which means he is a very morally gray character. While Alwyn is not necessarily a violent character, the thing that makes him so morally gray is that he is going to play for whatever team is winning, even if that team is doing horrible, evil things. He wants to be on the winning side. When Alwyn becomes a soldier, he is placed underneath the banner of Lady Evadine Coralin, and she is rising up in this world as a very influential religious figure. She says that she can see visions of this impending apocalypse and is going to do whatever she can to stop the apocalypse from happening, stamp out the enemy by whatever means necessary, and that means showing violence towards people that don't agree with her. There is graphic violence in this book. Like I said, there are a lot of wars going on and battles, and the author does not shy away at depicting the bleak aspects of a war, and there also are assassinations, murders, and executions that the author includes in this book. One of the things that really differs The Covenant of Steel, I think, from other grimdark fantasies is how corrupt the religious institution is in this book, and religion plays a huge part in this plot. Religion is used as a means for manipulation in this world, as we see through Evadine Coralin. Unlike traditional fantasy, there are no noble heroes in this book. There are no grand quests to save the world. The focus is more on personal struggles and personal survivals inside of a bigger, larger conflict. Next, we have The Gentleman Bastards by Scott Lynch. And the grimdark elements that stand out to me the most in this series are the protagonists, because they are absolutely anti-heroes and morally ambiguous. We are following Locke Lamora and his gang of thieves, who are the complete opposite of your traditional fantasy heroes. They are masters at manipulating and deceiving the wealthy aristocrats of this world. And while Locke and his gang do have their own sort of moral code, it is definitely self-serving. There is also violence in this book. There are characters that die in very brutal, horrific ways, and death is definitely not romanticized in this series. The setting is also incredibly bleak. The city of Camor is poverty-ridden. It is crumbling to the ground. There is a big distinction between the wealthy and the paupers. There is corruption and inequality, and the underworld of the city is ruled by a crime lord, and his actions only benefit the wealthy aristocrats. What I like about this series is there is this deep undercurrent of cynicism, because there is actually no clear justice at all ever in this book, and the only right that you will find is the one that you create for yourself. However, there is a lot of humor in this book. There's a lot of banter between the main characters, which I think Scott Lynch did an excellent job with to kind of offset the bleakness of this world. And the main thing that I love about this book, and I think kind of fits in with the grimdark subgenre, is the fact that none of these characters actually have happy endings. Even when these characters, these master con artists' plans succeed, they come with a heavy cost, and endings are incredibly bittersweet, which is something that you never see in your traditional fantasy. All right, you guys, those are my recommendations of grimdark fantasy books if you enjoy Joe Abercrombie. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, or if you have any other grimdark book recommendations for me that you think I would enjoy based off of the books that I've presented for you. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in another video soon. Goodbye.